Let's talk about the Southside Crips. Apparently, there was some sort of tension already between Southside Crips and the Piru Bloods, and this is before the Tupac incident and everything else like that. From what I understand, there was some sort of tension already.
Well, there's always tension because the Southside Crips, they're Crips, and the Mob Piru or Looters Park, they're red. They're Pirus or Bloods. So throughout the history of Crips and Bloods, they fought against each other, and they don't like each other. So that tension was always there, and it's still there today.
Okay. Now let's talk about the incident that happened in the mall.
Okay, Trayvon was at the Lakewood Mall, and this was several months before.
And who was Trayvon?
Trayvon was a member of the Mob Piru or Looters Park, and he was a member of Suge Knight's entourage.
Okay. Was he part of Death Row?
He was part of Death Row, and he had on a Death Row necklace. And there was rumors of some sort of bounty going on about if you get one of these Death Row necklaces, they'll pay a bounty for it, but we never heard that then. All we know is Trayvon Lane was up at the Lakewood Mall, and Orlando Anderson from Southside Crips and a bunch of his friends were up there. They saw Trayvon Lane, they beat him down, and they took his chain from him.
Okay. How bad was the beatdown?
It wasn't that bad, but it was really the chain that got ripped off was the big thing, the Death Row chain.
Okay. So the Death Row chain got taken.
Correct.
And Orlando Anderson, a.k.a. Baby Lane, was involved in that altercation.
Yes.
Was there a police report around this or anything else like that, or you just heard about it?
I investigated several years later. I was assigned for a while with on loan to LAPD on a Biggie Smalls task force and reinvestigated some of the Tupac incidents. And I went to Lakewood Mall, spoke with the security that was at the mall, and there were several that recall the incident. And at that time, they couldn't find any paperwork generated. However, they did recall some of the participants and recall the incident.
How long from that time to the Vegas incident?
Several months, I believe.
Okay, so some time had passed.
Yes.
Okay. So then Orlando Anderson was in Vegas for fight night.
Correct.
I'd heard a bit of a story that he was wearing the Death Row chain.
No, not true.
Not true. Okay, I know that was a fuzzy area. So from what you understand, from what you had heard, what happened in Vegas?
Well, the Tyson fight was over, and Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur and their entourage, they were walking down the the lobby hallways after the fight, and Trayvon Lane was with Suge Knight again. And then he saw Baby Lane standing as they were walking. He was standing over to the side, and he pointed him out to Tupac. I think he whispered something in his ear, and he basically told him that's the guy that took my chain. So right after he told him that, Tupac went over there, and the fight was on.
Okay.
And Suge jumped in, the rest of the entourage, so they beat down Orlando Anderson at that time.
I saw some of the footage from that night, but the camera was sort of moving. So you didn't kind of see the beginning parts of it. Did Tupac actually approach him by himself, or did he approach him with other people?
He was the first one.
He was the first one that ran up to him and started throwing all the punches. Yes.
Okay, and then everyone else jumped in.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So, what did you hear happen after that?
After that, we, from informants we spoke to, the information we got, and talking with Las Vegas police, and most of, like I said, through witnesses and informants we spoke to, what happened after that was Tupac and Suge Knight and some of the entourage from the mob, the gang members, followed the car that Tupac and Suge were in, and they were going to the 662 Club in Las Vegas for an after party. The Southside Crips got together. Orlando Anderson met with some of the other persons from Southside that we know were there, his uncle, Keefe D, and T. Brown, and DeAndre Smith, that were some of the persons there, and Wendell, can't think of his last name, Wynn. But they wanted to go to the 662 Club to exact revenge. It was basically a gang beatdown, disrespect on Orlando Anderson. He got with his persons, got a gun, They got into a car and started heading towards the 662 Club. And then by sheer coincidence, ran into Tupac and Suge Knight on the boulevard. Saw them, that, hey, there they are right there. From the information we got and received through the informants involved with the gang, Orlando Anderson pointed the gun out the window, pulled up next to the car with Suge and Tupac in it, and fired several times in the car, eventually shooting Tupac and grazing Suge Knight in the head.
There was always these theories since that time that Suge Knight had somehow orchestrated this whole thing because Tupac was allegedly getting ready to leave death row and this was some sort of planned assassination. Do you feel there's any truth to this?
No, and actually when we hear that theory, we kind of chuckle ourselves because it's so ridiculous, really, because Suge Knight at the time, like I say, was probably the biggest guy in rap music. He could have had Tupac killed any way he wanted if he wanted him killed, right? He's not going to pay somebody, okay, hey, I'm going to be sitting next to a car and Tupac's going to be next to me. You guys pull alongside and start shooting into the car, but don't hit me. It's like ridiculous. Who would do that, you know?
Yeah, it always sounded ridiculous to
Yeah.
me. You know,
I wouldn't trust some gang member shooting sideways into the car that he's going to hit him and miss me.
right. And Suge was about 3 times the size of
Right.
Tupac.
All right.
Yeah, I never thought that this was a serious type of thing, but you'd be surprised how many famous, connected people I talk to who feel this way.
Oh yeah, because there was a book written about it.
Have Gun Will Travel?
No, it was Labyrinth by
Labyrinth.
or whatever by Russell Poole. I don't know, but we read it and we just shook our head because we couldn't believe this was actually in a book and people believed it.
Okay. So according to you guys, Orlando pulled up to the car, shot at the car, and then they drove off. Now, how could it be in the middle of Las Vegas that this could happen without any video footage, police, they just got away clean?
I don't understand why as far as I know, there was video footage from casinos, outdoors. This is 96. I don't know. I mean, today we have, traffic cameras. We have a lot more video going on from different businesses and everything else. 96, there was less places with outdoor video. So I believe possibly that it could have been missed by some of the outdoor video, or it just didn't have the right angle if there was video there. I'm sure if there was video, it would have come out outside of the video that was in the actual casinos. But there were witnesses, of course, that didn't come forward.
Okay.
Witnesses in Suge's entourage, Suge Knight. Even Suge Knight at a later interview, a few years later, said, "You guys know who shot him? Baby Lane shot him." Right? I mean, so he even admitted that.
Suge Knight said this?
He did say that in an interview that I read in a magazine a couple of years after the shooting, I believe.
Okay.
But basically said he's not going to tell. He goes, you guys are the police. You guys, that's your job to investigate and find out who did it.